We resume our study of the Narada Bhakti Sutras. The 11th aphorism says, Loka Vedeshu tad anukula acharanam tad virodhishu udasinata. Loka Vedeshu means regarding all activities secular and sacred, and tad anukula acharanam, those practices favorable to the cultivation of bhakti are to be cultivated, and tad virodhishu, which means practices hostile to the cultivation of bhakti, udasinata, one must be indifferent. So indifference to factors hostile to devotion and performance of such secular and sacred activities as are favorable to devotion is recommended for the development of higher devotion. You see, this is a very practical instruction, because in our life, if we are careless about the way we lead our lives, about our everyday lifestyle, about the priorities we give in our lives and the things we relate to, what we keep around us, all this, if we cannot afford to be careless about all this, if life itself has to be divinized, then every little aspect of life must bear the touch of bhakti, which means keep those things around you which help you in the furtherance of your devotion, which help you cultivate higher devotion. Let us keep those factors in our life which will help in the in our bhakti sadhana, and those which are hostile or which don't remove our bhakti, they are to be distanced. That is the whole message. By practically doing this, by divinizing our lifestyle, it helps a lot in bhakti sadhana. That is why, see, in every day, in our modern lifestyle, in our homes, in our office spaces, it is important somehow to bring the idea of the divine, somehow to divinize all our actions towards Him. That way we speedily move forward in the path of devotion. So this is recommended. Bhavatu nishchaya dardhyat urdhvam shastra rakshanam. And let a man have care for the spiritual teachings even after his spiritual realization becomes well established. So he must not become careless about scriptural ordinances once he has become a spiritual master. That is what is being said. Even after realization is well established, still he must follow the norms of and the duties of his particular stance, his particular way of life. He must be dutiful and he must take care to follow the scriptural ordinances. That is his dharma, even if he is a spiritual master. So this is being recommended. The next sutra says, Anyatha patitya shankaya. Otherwise there is risk of fall. You will see the life of the great masters, even they followed the little norms of spiritual life. They followed the sattvic ways of conduct and behavior. They were above all difference. They had a unitary perception, but still they followed it just to set an example. Otherwise, as it is said, there is a risk of fall, or people may understand things wrongly. For that reason, the code of conduct of a spiritual aspirant must be perfect. And in that lies his, the augmentation of his spirituality. So then the next sutra says, Lokopi tavadeva bhojanadi vyapara tu asharira dharana avadhi. Social customs and practices may be followed in like manner to that extent only, but activities like taking food may be continued to the measure necessary for the preservation of the health of the body until it falls off in its natural course. So this is the meaning of bhojanadi vyapara asharira dharana avadhi. Practice that which is conducive to devotion, even regarding social customs or the simple practices of everyday living. Let us make them as sattvic as possible, because that conduces to the development of higher devotion. When it comes to food, if food is made sattvic, and even the way we prepare food and the intention of the person, the way he's cooking, with what thought he is cooking, all this they say matters quite a lot, but let us not take it as the ultimate thing, but it matters in changing the ways of our mind. The perversities of our mind can be removed by sattvic food, because ahara shuddho sattva shuddhi, it is said, which means if our ahar, that which we take in through the senses, is pure, then it results in sattva in the system. So mind easily comes under control as a result. You can practice it and see. So that is why good sattvic food is recommended, and not just with respect to food, whatever we take in through the senses. If it is imbued with sattva, it will result in easy development of bhakti. It will help us in our sadhana. So this is being said. Then Narada says, Tal lakshanani vachyante nana matabhedat. The characteristics of bhakti are described variously on account of difference in viewpoints. So different sages, as per their experience, have given different characteristics of bhakti. So here a few are outlined. We'll quickly go through these few. Pujadishu anuraga iti parasharyaha. So parashara, that is Vyas. That he is the son of the sage Parashar, is Vyas. So what does he say? So the son of Parashar Muni is Vyas. So he says that Puja Adishu Anuragaha, a love for acts of worship towards the divine, like puja. This is important for the cultivation of bhakti. This is one of the characteristics of bhakti. And then you have Kathadishu Gargaha. The sage Garga says holy talk and discussion on holy topics and the like. This is important for the cultivation of devotion. So all these are important. Each one is important. Atmarati avirodhena iti Shandilyaha. The sage Shandilya holds that it must be without prejudice to the delight in the Atman. So you see, bhakti is not opposed to Jnana. They complement each other, and both are required in our journey towards the Supreme. That is why Sri Ramakrishna actually recommended Jnana Mishrita Bhakti. Then he says, Naradastu tad arpita akhila acharata tad vismarane parama vyakulata iti. And Narada says that tad arpita akhila acharata, which means surrender of or consecration of all activities to him by complete self-surrender to him, and extreme anguish if he were to be forgotten. This is the sign of bhakti. So you see, check your life and see, we do this to anyone who is beloved to us. But with the Lord, this must really become a primary thing, which means natural consecration or surrender of everything at His feet, and feeling an extreme pain or anguish in case we forget Him in our daily circumstances of life. So this is important for the this is one of the important characteristics of bhakti according to Narada. Asti evam evam. And examples do exist of such perfect expression of bhakti. What are the examples? Yatha Vraja Gopikanam, which means the bhakti of the gopis of Vraja. This is the characteristic example given always for bhakti, for the simple reason their spirit of consecration to the divine, surrender to the divine, was so spontaneous. And in spite of the fact that they would lose their good name, they still practice the highest form of devotion to the Lord by surrendering everything to Him, even their man. Whatever they had of value, they surrendered at the feet of the Lord. So we know the classic stories of the stories of Vrindavan, where every gopi was so imbued with supreme devotion to Lord Krishna, she never thought of herself. That way she transcended the little self, the ego, and developed into the full blossoming of bhakti you will find in their lives. So there are many stories connected with this. Some of the stories are like, you see, once when Sri Krishna was in Dwarka, his queens told him that why is it that you have, whenever you are in trouble, you take the name of Radha. Whenever you are in joy, you take the name of Radha. Why does she only come to your mind and not any one of us? So then Lord Krishna had to say, well, because her devotion was the highest. And then they said, but our devotion also is very high and you don't know about it. So then he does a little acting just to show them the very nature of Radha. So what he does is, one fine day he gets up in the morning and starts complaining of migraine. Now Lord Krishna has severe headache, migraine, and he is not able to find any relief. So everybody gets very worried. All the courtiers, the queens, everybody come into his chamber and try to use all kinds of treatment available at that time, but nothing is curing his headache. So then they ask him, oh Lord, you only now give us the solution to your headache. How will this go? And then he says that, if there's only one way. If the padadhuli of a devotee falls on my forehead, if it is applied here, then this pain will go. Now who on earth will be prepared to put the dust of their feet on his head? Because his divinity was well recognized in his own times. So nobody dared to do anything like that. Not even his queens. They all backed out. They all said at that point, oh, you are just acting. Anyway, you are the Lord of the universe. So we cannot give out the dust of our feet to be put on your head. It will get us eternal hell. So how can we have such a fate after this devotion to you? So we are not doing it. Then Lord Krishna kept asking that, can't anybody give a little bit of the dust of their feet? It will cure me of the migraine. Well, if you cannot, then at least go and get it from someone. You see, Vrindavan is not very far. Go there and you ask one of them, those gopis there, to give a little of their charan dhuli, and if that can be put on my head, my headache will go. So it seems the courtiers went all the way to Vrindavan, and there they met the gopis, and as soon as the gopis heard that Sri Krishna was not well and the only remedy to his problem was the dust of the devotee's feet, at once they, on a piece of cloth, they put all their padadhuli, the dust of their feet, and again they collected that sand, and then they wrapped up that piece of cloth and gave it to the courtiers and said, please go and apply it on the Lord's head. And everyone was so surprised. You really want this to be applied on the head of the Lord? And they said, see, if he is relieved of his pain, that is heaven for us. Doesn't matter what happens to us. We are not bothered about that. But he should get relief from pain. See, this is the attitude of true love. Only the beloved matters. And in his joy is their joy. In his happiness is their happiness. Something of this attitude is reflected even in a mother when she feels for her child, isn't it? So this is a very pristine, pure state of bhakti or pure love. And when they did this and they gave the padadhuli, the courtiers carried it to Dwarka and applied it on Sri Krishna's head, and he became all right completely. And then he said, see, he addressed all his queens and said, did you see their devotion? They never think of themselves. They didn't fear, what will happen to me, will I go to hell? They only wanted my relief of this pain. So that is why they are far great, very great in devotion. And Radha is the greatest among them because she inspires them to do these things. So this is how he demonstrated the love, the devotion of the gopis of Vraja. That is why it is said these are the greatest examples of pure devotion, parabhakti. Tatrapi cha mahatmya jnana vismriti apavadaha. Even here, the charge that they did not recognize the divine glory of the Lord does not hold good, because they actually recognize the divinity of the Lord. In Gopi Geetam, it is very beautifully described. Na khalu gopika nandanod bhavan akhila dehinam antaratmadrik. So there the gopis are telling, you are not merely the son of a gopi of Yashoda, but you are akhila dehinam antaratmadrik. You are the self of all beings. You are the antaryamin in all beings. That is this is how they address Sri Krishna. So they were aware of his divinity. They knew who he was. and they recognized it fully. And so this charge that they did not know his real nature or his glory does not hold good. Tad vihinam jaranamiva, which means had they lacked this knowledge of the divinity of the object of their love would have been similar to the base passion of a mistress for her paramour. Obviously, so what he is trying to point out is knowledge goes with devotion. Knowledge goes with devotion, and that devotion reaches its peak where knowledge completely blossoms forth. So love is not bereft of knowledge. Love itself means there is full knowledge of the object of love. Even from the standpoint of Krishna, this is beautifully actually illustrated in a particular story. Once it is said that when the Bhagavatam was first being expounded, Shukdev was expounding it to Raja Parikshit, and Raja Parikshit had only 7 days to live, so he wanted to hear about the glories of the Lord. And at that moment, Parikshit suddenly, when they came to the 10th chapter, the story of Lord Krishna, the Krishna avatar, Parikshit heard the story of the Lord, and then he asks Shukdev, I have one doubt in my mind, please clear it. So Shukdev says, what is your doubt, O king? He says, you see, the Lord, the avatar comes to establish righteousness. Sri Krishna also came to establish righteousness, but then why did he do these leelas with the gopis? Why did he he did many things with the cowherd girls of Vrindavan which don't appear to be righteous, like he would call them in the middle of the night on the bank of the Yamuna. He did Ras Leela with them. Some of them were wives of other men. So why did the Lord do these actions? Please explain it to me. That time Shukdev says, you see, don't try to understand this divine Leela through mundane eyes. You must raise your consciousness to understand the actions of an avatar. And then he explains, from Krishna's standpoint, all these gopis, these cowherd girls, he knew their past. They were great rishis who wanted to taste divine love, so they were born as gopis, and so they appeared to him as mirror images of himself. And when they appeared to him as mirror images of his own being, Sri Krishna saw only the Lord in all of them, and so he sported with himself in their form, and that is why he did all those leelas with them. And from the gopis' standpoint, they clearly recognize the divinity of Lord Krishna. As I just described, na khalu Gopika Nandanod Bhavan Akhila Dehinam Antaratmadrik. They themselves describe Sri Krishna like that. They knew he is the Antaryamin in all beings, so how will they not fall in love with him? So this is the reason for their mutual love and devotion. It is far beyond any kind of mundane relationship or understanding. So don't look at it with carnal eyes. See the divinity reflecting there, and that is how you must study the Krishna Leela. So it is a transcendental relationship of pure divine love. That is what existed, and otherwise it would have been just like the attraction between two pairs of the base passion between two lovers. So that it was not that. That is being said here. Then the next sutra says, Tasmin tat sukha sukhitvam Tasya sukham tat sukham tasmin sukham. See, what they are trying to say is Nasti eva tasmin tat sukha sukhitvam. There, that is in that profane love of the mistress for her paramour, her happiness does not at all consist in the happiness of the other. So it's a you can say it's all about mutually satisfying biological needs. So base passions are like that, and they have to be distinguished. That is why from this higher forms of love, divine love. So here there's a biological need, but in divine love there is absolutely no biological need. The bhakta has transcended his biology. He has transcended his desires, and that is why his devotion arises from the tranquil, pure heart, where he has felt the divinity, the pure consciousness of the being in front of him. And that is why he relates to him. So this is a completely different paradigm altogether. That is why without inner purification, there is no bhakti. You see, in the modern world, everything can pass for love, and there is no distinction made between lust and passion and love. But they are, quite opposite to each other in their very nature. The nature of lust is it seeks only to satisfy small desire, selfish desire for oneself. But love transcends all desires, and it arises not from the passionate heart but from the tranquil heart that has transcended small desires and loves the divine only for his own sake, because he recognizes his own self there. So it's a completely different paradigm, and it can only be understood through purity of heart and mind. That is why that is the precondition for this bhakti. We must understand this. The most important precondition for bhakti is purity of heart. Without that, it will not attain its transcendental heights. So if this one thing we can cultivate in life, bhakti will automatically come into our hearts. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.